Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Intuitive Health Portal. I'm Dr. Robert Shapiro.
I'm Teresa.
And today we are going to discuss some possible solutions to the problems that you're facing with the COVID vaccine mandates. We're going to talk about solutions as far as like work goes. We're going to talk about health as well as mainly employment, right?
Employment,
Okay.
Yeah, because one of the questions that we addressed in our last episode is whether to stay at your job or leave your job. And if you stay, well, obviously nothing really changes.
Mm-hmm.
But what if you decide to go? What if you decide to take your life into your own hands, your choices, your own decisions, and then kind of say, okay, I'm going to take this new path. What does that path look like?
What you just said a moment ago about if you stay, nothing changes. I'm going to say that I kind of disagree with that. And the reason why I say that is because if you do stay and you decide to accept the mandate, there may be some unforeseen consequence to that. You know, the fact that maybe, giving into that, who knows? I mean, it's just speculative. But you're probably right for the most part. Nothing really changes. Then again, it may open the door for them to mandate something else. So I think that's something to take into consideration. It's kind of like maybe it's a very poor example for me to use, but when you go back to what happened leading up to Nazi Germany, to World War II, there's a recounting of what happened. It was an individual that was in, I believe they were in Austria, but it could have been Germany. And they talked about how first they came for the Jews, and we stayed silent. We said nothing. We did nothing. And then they came for the Polish people. And once again, they stayed silent and they said nothing and did nothing, right? They just kind of went with the flow. And then they came for the gypsies. And again, we said nothing. We did nothing. And then they came for the French and the British, and before you knew it, the only people that were left were the Germans or the Austrians that were left behind, right? And then now, who's the target? They end up being the target. They find flaws in those people, and they started to imprison them in one way or another, right? Anybody that opposed the movement, right? Again, it's a bit of a stretch, I suppose, but just kind of something to take into consideration. So, moving forward, let's talk about a more positive subject. Let's talk about what do we do now? I've made the decision that I'm not going to accept the mandate. My employer is going to force me to leave. And one of the normal backstops that most people have when they decide that an employer is going to lay them off for one reason or another or fire them is unemployment. But as many of you probably know, they are actually denying unemployment if people refuse the mandate. So that's something you have to take into consideration. What do I do? Here's a possible solution. All right. Many states, California being one of them, have a disability system. Let's say you've been nagged by a chronic injury. Let's say you have a bad knee, you have a torn meniscus, or maybe you suspect it and you've never had it checked. Well, one of the things you can do is go get that checked and see if it exists, because if it is a reason, if it can affect your work, it might be a reason for you to temporarily go on disability. I'm not advocating making a reason up, but let's say you have a herniated disc in your back. I've had this happen. People come in, we end up finding they have a herniated disc in their back. Every time they go back to work, it flares up. They need time to rest. They need time to recuperate. That may be something that that comes up. Not saying that should be your first choice. Again, it's just an idea, right? It's just kind of a possibility. Probably more realistically, though, it's a time for you to, you need to figure out your priorities. All right. So what I mean by that is one of the first things you should do is look at your debts and look at your sources of income. If you have no other sources of income, how can you come up with some other ones? Can you maybe take a skill set that you have, like graphic design or, podcasting, for instance, or, maybe you have a massage background. Maybe you can go and you can start doing that and making money as a self-employed individual. All right.
Mhm.
What if you're a handyman? What if you're good with yard work? You could probably go out and start a handyman / landscaping type of business. All right. Obviously, you have to look at whether you're going into what we call a blue ocean market or a red ocean market. A red ocean market is when there's a lot of competition. Like everybody on every other corner is a landscaper or whatever, or a cosmetologist.
Mhm.
Yeah, like hairstylist, right? Or right now, I'm seeing a lot. The market that I'm seeing is getting pretty saturated is real estate. Like everybody's getting into real estate, right? Still pretty profitable, but I mean, I saw this happen back in 2006, 7,
Mhm.
and then 2008 came,
Yeah.
and everybody who told me that they had wanted to be a real estate agent their whole life and then barely got into it then, for the most part, they're not doing it anymore. I mean, it is a career, and you have to take it seriously, right? But maybe you could do it. Maybe you could do some flipping of houses. Maybe you can set some deals up for some people and generate a little income that way. It's something that can be done, right? I don't want to discourage you from it. I just want you to think: is this something that has long-term potential, right? Blue ocean market, on the other hand, is something that there's very few people doing. Okay. I mean, one thing that we've delved into is trading cryptocurrency. That's something that I do a little bit of. I've actually been more investing in them. But you could trade commodities, regular currencies, stocks. I mean, if it's an interest of yours, you can learn it. There's lots of indicators and systems out there that have some effectiveness. Different people tend to gravitate towards different things. There's all kinds of knowledge out there. You don't even have to pay for some of it. A lot of it is like readily available on YouTube and through other like teaching platforms, right? And I can always we can always put some links in our description for that if that'll help. Let's see here. So healthcare, like you're a Reiki practitioner, so
And when I'm not in session, one of the things that's been coming up a lot lately is people are wanting readings. And so being able to do a reading either by phone, either by Zoom, it's something that I can pre-record, for somebody. As far as being able to, pay for a reading from a distance, there's now Zelle, Venmo, PayPal, multiple, it's like ways to be able to deliver that service. And so majority of, people that, I follow on social media, I'm always looking to, to learn something. But one of the things that I've seen people do, even if they do have a job, is we've actually said this before. We don't believe in having just a single income stream.
Mhm.
And so I've actually encouraged a number of our patients and people that I've done sessions for. I said, become a consultant. That's kind of the big thing today. And it's something that you can do while you still have your job, because in all the years that I've been working, I never did just one thing. And I actually had many home-based businesses. And so I wanted to make sure that, if it ever happened that I lost my job, that I had a backup.
Yeah. And what does that mean to be a consultant? Well, granted, consultant is many things. You can consult on many things, but I would say that you're going to be a consultant on something that you're an expert on. Think of the things that you've been doing for years that like the back of your hand. Okay. Could be HVAC, could be construction, could be electrical, could be chiropractic, could be Reiki, could be the internet, could be communications. You can be a consultant on that stuff, right? I mean, you have a knowledge that not everybody has and doesn't have as many years of knowledge as you do, or the experiences that you do, and you have to be able to see the uniqueness of that. And of course, sell that to people. And so, and that's just getting in front of people. And honestly, that's never been easier than it is today. And you can do it practically for free through YouTube. You can do it through
Look at all the influencers.
Yeah, look at all the influencers. I mean, I go online and I'm like, who's this influencer? Like, how do they get this? And it's simply because all they did is get on there and get in front of people, and they got their attention. And then they developed trust, and they developed a network. And that's the modern day networking. That's why they call it the social network effect, is because they're doing it through these online platforms. It's never been easier. You don't even have to get off your butt and go to a BNI or, the tip meeting anymore, even though those are great ways to do it. You don't have to do that. You can do it out of the comfort of your home. If you're more of an introverted person, doesn't mean you have to necessarily get out of your comfort zone too much, right? You have to be able to take a good look at yourself and find out where your strengths and where your weaknesses are. You want to capitalize on your strengths. You want to minimize your weaknesses or work on them over time to build them into, not as bad a weakness, right? If it's really hindering your ability to be successful. Most people find that their weaknesses, they can just kind of set them aside and kind of minimize them, right? And their strengths are so strong that it just overpowers those weaknesses, and they just capitalize on those strengths and they run with it. It's incredible to watch people, what they can do that, and they don't even realize it usually when they do it. Like an example that comes to my brain is Gary Vaynerchuk. Mm-hmm. Most people know who he is.
Gary
V, right? And he talks about, like, when you listen to him talk about how he first started, he literally just like turned the camera on and started recording content, and he did not know where it was going to go. And this is when that's when he took his dad's wine business over and he started the wine show. And I believe he took that business from like 500,000 a year or maybe $1 million a year to about 5 million or more, right? In a very short period of time. And he said that when they recorded their first, I think, like 7 episodes, nobody was watching. And then like on their 8th episode, people started watching. And then of course, from the viral effect, right? The sharing effect, people liking, subscribing, etc., it started to spread. And before he knew it, he had this like crazy audience and people were interacting, and he just built from there. And that's the thing about it. Like, you do not need to have an absolute solid plan. Does it help? Yes, it does. But a lot of times what people will do is they will think, I have to have this perfect plan. And if I don't, I'm never going to move forward. Like, it's either perfect or else. And I'm going to tell you right now, if that's the way you think, it's never going to happen. All right. Look at the iPhone. If they had waited for the iPhone to be perfect, it wouldn't exist. The darn thing wouldn't exist. It's not perfect. It's almost never perfect. But you know what? It gets better and better. And the fact that they got it out to market, and there are people that loved the original iPhone, they loved the things they could do, and then they gave the creator, Apple, feedback, right? They asked for it, they got it, and they just went back and they remodeled it, and they just keep doing it, right? And look how many billions of dollars a year they make, because they took a chance and they put it out to market, right? They came up with an idea, they put it out to market, they took a chance. Now, does every idea blow up like the iPhone? Nope, it doesn't. There's probably far more people who fail than succeed, okay? And I just want to say that because I don't want to give you like these lofty ideas. Oh, I've got this great idea, I'm going to do it and I'm going to blow up. It may not happen, but that's where the risk taking comes in, right?
Look at the light bulb.
Yeah, the whole story about Edison and the light bulb. He failed 999 times and he got it right once, right? I mean, but great example on that. Edison wasn't just an inventor. I mean, he had all these other things going on. He had lots of patents. Like, he didn't put all of his eggs in one basket. He would get something going, and then that would start generating income. And then he would take some of that money and siphon it off to something new, right? And then sometimes it was a dud. Okay, scratch it off. Next thing, right? And he would just keep going down the line. And then, maybe every like 3rd idea would take off, right? And generate an income stream. And before he knew it, he's got probably, 5, 7, 10 income streams from different ideas, right? But he probably had to go through 50 to 100 ideas in order to generate those 10 income streams, let's say, right? And that's what you have to do. It's okay to fail. Yes. Failure is good, all right? Yes. You learn way more from failure than you do success, all right? I'll give you a great example. Some of the guys that I went to school with, all they ever knew were success. They were successful athletes. They were very popular. A lot of times they weren't like super successful when it came to academics. Some of them were, but this applied to the ones I knew that were extremely successful academically. Like when I went to chiropractic school, the smartest guys in my class that did the best grades, most of them are not actually in actual practice, clinical practice. And because unfortunately, getting good grades does not make you a great chiropractor. You have to be very good with your hands. You have to have excellent technique, and you have to have good people skills. You have to have likability. And thankfully, that's something that I had, and I developed even better, over time. I had the skill, very technically minded, but I had to allow my personality to come out because I was very reserved and I was afraid of judgment. And so I learned to get that out of the way and, and express myself. And yeah, some people it pushes away, but you know what? I was amazed at how many people it drew in. It's just, the more you can be yourself, the more you're gonna draw in the audience you want to be around. Just be yourself, right? As long as yourself isn't a complete a-hole. You can be an a-hole like Tucker Max. Yeah. Tucker Max made books and success off being an a-hole. I hope they serve beer in hell or something like that, right? So, and there's a great idea. Have you thought about writing a book? Maybe you've been working on it, right? Maybe you need that time. Maybe the reason why this is coming is because you needed time to focus on yourself. All right. Yes. I really do believe that's a lot of why this is happening, because it is forcing people to evolve. Two types of evolution: voluntary evolution, forced evolution. It's forcing us to evolve. And so maybe this is your sign that you need to evolve, and maybe you need to learn a new skill. Maybe go back to school. Maybe that's your thing. With college, I'm kind of 50-50 on it. And let me say why. I believe in education strongly. I don't always believe that what they're charging for it is worth what you're getting. All right. They're selling a lot of nonsense in college now. There's a lot of wasted degrees like underwater basket weaving and, social justice warrioring. Like, it's never going to lead to a career. You're going to be stuck the rest of your life in debt, and you're not going to have an income. You need to look at the potential income for whatever you're spending on that education. Now, here's a great education that you don't spend a ton of money on that pays off, like is worth more than its weight in gold. Nursing. Mm-hmm. They don't have to go to school very long. They come out making a 6-figure income. I've never seen that. Like, the nurses make bank. I'm not saying you got to be a nurse, I'm just giving an example. Yeah. Right? So, any other ideas?
Well, going back to the consulting thing, mentorship, empowerment, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Because anything that you've gone through, anything that you're going through, think about your experiences, and it may have been completely rough. And so
terrible.
Now, horrible, right? But now you're on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that needs to be shared.
Yeah. And a lot of people like mental health.
Yes.
Mental health is a huge thing. It is a huge industry. You could get into counseling, and it doesn't have to be traditional. I mean, maybe you want to get a degree, but you don't always have to do that. Like, you can get involved in that in a lot of different ways. Teresa does that. She doesn't have a degree. She has very unique life experiences that she brings to the table, that surprisingly a lot of people have very similar experiences. And that's one of the things you can look at is, how are my experiences similar to other people's? Mm-hmm. And how can I share like the battles that I faced and how I overcame them, so that those people can learn from, again, your so-called failure, right? Which is really, truly a success. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times we see the fact that we went through these things as a failure of us, like something's wrong with me. And then eventually you figure out there's nothing wrong with you. You're pretty darn unique. It was just maybe the wrong place at the wrong time. You overcame it. The fact that you're still here means you overcame it. And now it's like, how am I moving forward? How am I finding the strength and the resources to move forward and maybe even grow? Mm-hmm. Ideally grow, right? You probably have grown from it. You may not even realize it.
Yes.
And that's typically what happens. I mean, I've faced challenges in my life, and I've grown tremendously from it, but I didn't see it at the time. Mm-hmm. She's faced challenges. She's grown from it. Like, everybody that we associate ourselves with, we have found more and more like they have faced some crazy challenges, a lot of times even worse than us. Mm-hmm. And they're working through it. And one of the most satisfying things that we've experienced in our careers and in our lives is to be able to help those people work through those challenges to see things from maybe a different point of view, so that number one, they can overcome the challenge. Number two, they can actually see the blessing in disguise of that challenge. And number three, they become either the person they were meant to be, or they just get closer to what they're supposed to be, and they're much more successful because of it. And that's one of the most not empowering, but satisfying parts of the work that we do. And the reason why we're trying to bring this content to you guys. Like, we want to be there to help you out. You know, we hope that our words and our experiences can maybe shed light for you, or help you realize that you're not weird. You're not, you're different, but different is good, or maybe you are weird. Weird is okay. Like, I'm weird, I'm weird. I'm very unusual. Like, my personality test says I'm like 5 to 6% of the population. That's how few people out there are like me. But you know what's kind of satisfying about that is when I took my personality test, is to realize I'm not alone in it. Like, there are people out there that are like me. We're just super unique, and we think a certain way. And once I understood that, it made me realize, like, you're not all messed up. You just think a different way. So you got to work with it. You got to work with what you got. You got to work with your gifts, work with your strengths. So yeah, the consulting thing, counseling, mental health is huge. If you can't find anything, go volunteer. Go help some people out. If you're a giving person, go help out, because that's in a way you can network that way. You'll meet people, get out of your comfort zone, go meet people, talk to them, be vulnerable. Be vulnerable. Okay. Are people going to judge you? Probably. Who cares? They're judging you anyways.
Yes.
You're sitting there right now. They're judging you. Go out there and do something with yourself. Go contribute. Be judged that way, because what's going to happen is people who are very strong-willed and who are movers and shakers, they see that. They like that. They like the fact that you're willing to put effort out and not expect a paycheck in return. I know I do. When I see people do stuff and I'm like, wow, you do this, and you're not like, you don't expect, oh, here, I need you to pay me a retainer fee up front, and I don't guarantee my work. When people say that kind of stuff to me, I'm like, you know what? I feel nervous about that. But when you say, I don't need that retainer up front, I'm willing to do the work, and then, maybe something will come out of this. Maybe you'll connect me to somebody. I'm really more apt, after the work is done and I'm satisfied with it, it's like, here you go, I'm going to pay you, and boom, let's get you set up with some people. I'm going to connect you with people that I know, so that you can generate an income from this, because it's the thing that we learned. We were in a franchise a long time ago, and it's called tipping the scales. All right. So in our psychology, if you are a person that actually cares about other people, you're not a narcissist or a sociopath or a psychopath, right? Those people need not apply. But anybody that's like empathic and cares about other people, inside of us, we've got this psychic set of scales. And when people do something for you, it tips the scales in your favor and away from them. And we have the natural tendency to be uncomfortable with that. And so what happens is, we will do something, we will give something, we will help them in order to tilt those scales back in their favor. All right. So you want to think about that. Like, if I want to get something from somebody, maybe I need to give first, and then I will receive. Now, does that always work? Of course not. But you know what? It works more often than you realize.
Yes.
And even if they don't give in return, it may not end up coming from that person. It may come from somebody else that observed, that knows them, or saw the process, or heard about it, and said, wow, I saw what you did for that person. I want to do something for you. I've seen that happen many times, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, it just all this stuff kind of comes out as far as like how to overcome this nonsense that's going on with these mandates, right? Because it is nonsensical. I mean, again, I would understand it better if half the population were dying from this thing, but it's 0.3%. All right. We have to get over it. It's here to stay. Are people going to die? Yes, they are. They're dying from the flu. They die from pneumonia. They die from gunshot wounds. They die from too much sun,
Stress.
They die from stress. More people die from stress than from this stupid virus.
Yeah.
We have to move forward, right? So what we want to do is we want to help give you ideas. Maybe if you're struggling with, what do? I don't want to vaccinate. Well, number one, you don't want to vaccinate. You don't have to, but you have to understand that, unfortunately, the employer is going to do what they do. You can't always control that, right? There are class action lawsuits that are pending, so you may go online and search for that too.
Mhm.
There may be somebody, like a group of people, that are suing the entity that you work for. I mean, that may piss somebody off, but whatever. It's a law of unintended consequences. So if you're going to mandate something, you better be willing to face the possible consequences of it. But I don't think, realistically, like a class action lawsuit is going to probably be the main thing that pops up. It's worth giving a shot. Takes you a minute to type it in on Google or whatever, see if anything comes up, right? Realistically, you just want to plan your exit strategy. You want to see if there's a career that you can go into, or like my friend who's a pharmacist, he's going to move from this state to Florida, for instance, and his license transfers there. And that's not difficult to figure out. You just call the board of that state and find out, is there reciprocity, which just means that if you can prove you have a license in one state, they'll accept that license as proof, right? Some states do that. Like California is a really good state to have a license in, because a lot of other states, their standards aren't quite as stringent. And so many times they will accept that license transferred immediately. Like all you got to do is pay the fee and you just transfer. You don't have to take any classes. You don't have to do their boards. You just go there. So, there are opportunities elsewhere. You may have to take a little less pay, but usually if that's the case, the cost of living is way less too. So, maybe even out of country, there's opportunities abroad. If you've ever thought about going to, say, Spain or to, Mexico or to the Caribbean or whatever. I've read various articles of people that have gone those places. They have pretty nice lives. So, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, but mainly just having a plan, just kind of saying this doesn't have to be my life.
Yeah. Going back into debt. Okay. If you have debt, all right, think about this. If you just have no other escape route, if you cannot get out, you can't get an income coming in that's enough to cover your debt. Maybe you own a house, maybe you own cars, maybe you have a ton of credit card debt. All right. As an example, back in 2008, when the housing crash hit, we were in a lot of debt. I had over $80,000 in student loan debt. We had hundreds of thousands in credit card and other debts, and I started my business, and that's part of the reason why. And it went really well, but then when the banks changed the laws on your credit, my credit card interest rates tripled. All I was doing is paying interest on them. So 2010, we decided to file bankruptcy. And you'd be surprised how easy it is to do. I actually thought it was going to be really tough. I thought it was going to be very painful. It cost us $1,400 to the attorney. We had to turn in, our various bank statements and our debts and all that. And then your income, you have to show them your assets. We had very little in the way of assets, just a little money in the bank. The means test is you can keep, at the time, you could have up to $22,000 of assets. That's liquid money or, whole life insurance, gold, silver, stocks, bonds, etc. Right? Be it vintage cars, artwork, right? You're supposed to declare all that. We didn't have really that much, so I did end up having to pay some money from some of our assets, but I wiped out about over $200,000 worth of debt. It made a huge difference. It took a huge monkey off my shoulders. It allowed us to restructure and recapitalize and get our money flow to where it was more than our expenses. And we cut a lot of our expenditures, we cut off the cable, we probably cut our cell phone plan down. We didn't have, at the time, if we had what we have, Amazon Prime and Netflix and HBO Max, I would have cut it down to bare bones. I would have cut down to minimum, just so that I had something, but I wouldn't have everything. Yeah, there's sacrifice sometimes, but what's more important?
It was also surprising how quickly we were able to reestablish our credit.
Yeah.
And and so it wasn't as painful as we thought it was going to be, because
No.
when he first came to me with, we may have to file bankruptcy, I was like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
I was panicked. I was completely freaked out because I don't already had experienced it with family, and I said, no, we can't do that because we'll be ruined for and I didn't really know exactly how long that would be. But then we went through it, and then before I knew it, we were getting all of the, oh, you've been pre-approved, and and then suddenly getting a credit card again, and it was like, oh, okay, so
Yeah.
this is possible.
Let me tell you something, folks. Banks, they're financial whores. They want you in debt. Credit card debt is one of the most lucrative businesses around, because they're borrowing from the government at like less than a percentage interest rate, and they are loaning it out on credit cards for anywhere from $19.99 to 30% interest. All right, it's a great payback. It's risky. It's high risk because you can default on it easily, right? All they can do is ruin your credit score. Actually, they can tax you on it. Like if they write it off, now they can tax you on it, which sucks, but whatever. It's still not as painful as paying 30% interest. But they want you in debt. So what happens is you file bankruptcy, you do credit consolidation, you pay it off, and then next thing you know, you're getting credit card offers from different banks, other banks, because now they know, especially after a bankruptcy, they know you can't file bankruptcy for 7 years. So now they guarantee, in their mind, they're like, oh, this idiot's going to pay us for 7 years at least. They'll get in debt. We want you in debt, right? It's called indentured servitude. Indentured servitude. You owe them. All right. It's been around for centuries. It's just in debt now, right? You're a debt slave, and they love that. All right. So what you have to do is you have to learn to make the debt work in your favor. Always prefer to get into loans that are fixed rate interest. That way it's not fluctuating like credit cards can. But again, like you said, when we filed bankruptcy, within probably months, we were getting offers. We weren't getting accepted on all those. We ended up having to buy a car kind of like from one of the used car lots that's on the east side, which, hey, whatever. I did, it sucked, but I did what I had to. And I was happy I did it because they helped me reestablish my credit. They charged me like 25% interest. I paid it off in a year because I didn't want to pay the stupid fees. And it actually allowed us to get better credit cards. We'd make small purchases, pay them off every month or every other month. Get a store credit card like a Kohl's card or Home Depot, and then move up into bigger stuff like Visa and MasterCard, because you do want access to credit because it allows you to have leverage and allows you to use other people's money to your benefit. And you want to educate yourself on that, right? You don't want to go in debt for stupid things, because what you're doing when you buy stupid stuff like clothes and Michael Kors purses and Louis Vuitton, which are nice, all right. And if you can afford to pay it off quickly, buy it. But if you're going into debt for a year over the stupid thing and you're paying 30% interest on it, it's a dumb purchase, all right. It will never give you a return on investment, okay. So that kind of stuff, you want to pay it off quickly, right? Other stuff, let's say that you need to buy some education, all right. You may need that credit to pay for that up front, and then learn it and then turn around and apply it and make money off that, right? That's a smart type of debt if you know you can make money off it, especially good money, right? Or maybe you invested in something. Maybe you invested in Bitcoin when it was $3,000. Yeah, maybe you're paying 30% interest on that money, but Bitcoin is, even after the crash recently, it's worth $50,000, right? That's a hell of a return on investment, and that would have been a no-brainer, right? So, but how could you know that back then? Well, you have to do your homework. But just as an example, right? There's good debt, there's bad debt, right? There's good application.
But also going on the education thing, I was actually able to get a Discover card because of being a student.
Yes, yeah, that's a great point. Years ago, when I was in college, I got a Citibank card. I couldn't get a credit card until I was a student, and they gave me a credit card. Now, why do they do that? Well, they know as a student, you're going to buy books and stuff like that, and you're going to get yourself in debt, right? So in their mind, it behooves them to do it. Use it to your advantage, all right? Don't be stupid with it. Be smart with it,
Mhm.
right? Use it to buy education or make little purchases. Stretch your paycheck out till next month, right? Maybe you only make enough. Let's say that you need something that costs $1,000, but you're only making $500. Well, then you buy it on credit and you pay it off with 2 paychecks, right? That's an example. Like, you're going to pay a little interest. That's okay. It's going to build your credit. It's a small price to pay to have access to that right now. Okay. Now, if you want to borrow from your future income to pay for something stupid today, like an 80-inch TV, which you really don't need, that's a mistake. Because again, you're borrowing. When you go into debt, you're borrowing from your future and you're spending it today. So you just got to think of it that way. So anyway, yeah, I just kind of want to touch base on the debt. Like, how do you handle the debt, right? Worst case scenario, file bankruptcy. Like, it's not the end of the world. I thought it was the end of the world when I got to the point where I was sunk in debt and I was considering bankruptcy. I thought I was the world's biggest loser. I got depressed over it. When I went and talked to the attorney, I was so blown away by how easy the process was going to be.
But also, even if bankruptcy isn't an option, one of the things that, I ended up having to do a couple of years ago now, probably more, was there are companies out there that can actually help negotiate your debt. And, so, I actually, they basically set you up with a particular payment plan, something that, is easy for you to, to work with, and they can spread it out over, I think on one of my cards, I had like 31 payments, and they were able to negotiate the debt down by about at least, I think it was like 35 to 40 to half or more. And so, and then I'm just making, it just comes out, just like clockwork. I pay twice a month, and I've already paid off, I think, one of the cards completely. And yeah, it does put a little bit of a damper on the, credit score, but then as soon as that's paid off, then you can just go to the credit agencies and say, this has actually been paid off. And so once those are completely paid, then it basically shows as a payoff and not necessarily a charge off or anything like that. So it is possible to actually reboost the credit score using those.
It'll actually happen quicker. It'll happen quicker that way than it will through bankruptcy.
Yes.
And so it is a very viable option. Any of the stuff that we talk about, if it's not really clear because we only have so much time to talk about it, we can only keep your attention so long, right? Anything that we talk about, maybe you want a little bit more clarification or information about, please feel free to reach out to us. Make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe to our channel.
Comment.
Please give us comments, give us feedback, right?
Yes.
Let us know, did you like the content? What did you like about it, right? What was helpful? What really resonated with you, right? Or if there's something you didn't like, tell us. Don't be a complete hater, but at the same time, just give us constructive criticism, right? We can take it. I can take it. I can take your punches and your spitwads or whatever. So yeah. Anyway, I think
good jumping off point. I think.
Yeah, I think it's a good jumping off point. I think we brought some good content for you guys, and we're going to bring more. So don't feel like this is the end, just the beginning. All right. I want to thank you for watching this with us, for listening with us, and we look forward to coming at you with more great content. Thank you so much.
Thank you.